Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Are you frustrated and stressed out with your professional and personal life? The Charge Podcast will help you get recharged. Yes, we are already in August of 2020. Time for schools to be opening up and students heading back to the classroom. Now this year, that may be not the case depending on where you're listening to this podcast. We decided this month we will talk about topics on education to share with you some experts on how they're handling educating students for today, tomorrow, and beyond. The goal of the Charge Podcast is for you to realize you can only control what you can control. Remember, our influence in life comes from the things we can control. You made a great choice in listening to this podcast. I think this quote sums it up best by Stephen R. Covey. I'm not a product of my circumstances. I am a product of my decisions. Remember, the podcast is named Charged after my mantra, create habits around real goals every day. Let's get recharged in this podcast to influence a positive culture in our life each day. Are you ready? Chargers, I know you're always looking for opportunities to learn, grow, and develop. That's why you listen to the Charge Podcast. Well, most leaders struggle with communicating the goals of your business to get results. At the Leadership Navigator Academy, we've created a learning and development program that helps leaders hold themselves and their team accountable. When your leaders change behaviors, you see results in increased performance and a more engaged team, which increases profits. If you would like to learn more about the Leadership Navigator Academy, go to thechargepodcast.com and click on the LNA link to get all the information.
Chargers, welcome to another great podcast. We're so excited each week to bring you different guests with different viewpoints. And you know, in the month of August, I've been bringing you guests that has an education background because I think we can all learn from it because number one, there may be students that you have and you want to learn something from that, or maybe you're in that part of your career where you have students going off to college, and today's guest will be that person for you. Today, we've got a native of St. Joseph, Missouri, Stephen Minnis. He received his bachelor's degree from Benedictine College in 1982. He obtained his Juris Doctorate degree from Washburn University in 1985 and a Master's of Business Administration degree in 1993 from Baker University. Minnis began his legal career in the county prosecutor's office for Johnson County, Kansas. Then at the Sprint Corporation, he held the position of director, state regulatory, and general attorney for 14 years. He served as president of Benedictine College Alumni Association from 1991 to 1995 and joined the Benedictine College Board of Directors in 1992, serving until October of 2004 when he became president of the college. He was honored with Benedictine's Kansas Monk Award as Outstanding Alumnus in 2001 and co-chaired the college's successful 2004 Scholarship Ball. Minnis was a contributing author to Inside the Mind, Achieving Success as a CEO, and has given numerous talks on spirituality in the workplace and academic freedom to groups across America. He was one of only 5 college presidents to be included on the Committee on Catholic Education Ex Corde Excelli working group in Baltimore in 2012, and he was invited by the Vatican to participate in the 2012 Pontificia Commission per America in Rome. Minnis and his wife Amy, a 1984 graduate of Benedictine College, lives in Atchison, Kansas. The couple has 3 grown children, Matthew, Michael, and Molly. Stephen, it is great to have you on the Charge Podcast. Welcome.
Great. Thanks, Gary, for having me.
Well, I am so excited to get in and talk a little bit about education, and especially secondary education, and what challenges there are there, but also what parents and students really need to be looking for in that area. But before I do, I ask every guest the same question. It's my mantra: charge. Create habits around real goals every day. What habit or habits do you think has led to success in your life, Stephen?
Sure. I always kind of think of three things that have really helped me the most. Number one is prayer. I always believe God has a plan. The plan always works. And anytime that He can help me out and I can ask Him for help and support and thank Him for what He's done for me is going to be very important in my life. So you always want to create a habit of prayer. I think you also want to create a habit of relationships, of building relationships with people. Humans are a social being and we need each other to be fully alive and to be happy. And so we need to continue to build those relationships. This has been very difficult, I think, during this COVID period of time because we've been unable to build those relationships. And so it's been very, very hard for everybody. Also, I'll go back to prayer. It's been also very hard with churches closed down and things like that. So it's all personal prayer too. And then finally, so prayer, relationships, and finally, the habit of being a lifelong learner. Harry Truman once said that not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. And so I think it's important to continue to be a lifelong learner, continue to read, and try to better yourself that way.
What's some great habits there. And the thing is really, it's about setting a foundation for yourself. And that's what education is really for, is setting the foundation for students really to succeed in life. And the one thing I love about Benedictine, as you know, we've got a son that went to school there last year, and we've got a daughter coming up this year, is they set them in that foundation. And we'll talk about some of that as we move forward. Stephen, one thing that I'm really curious about, I'm going to go to the parents in first, because when they're looking at college, I think parents have a role in this. Yes, they want their students to feel successful, and I think the students need to look at an area too. But for the parents and students, when they're looking and they're trying to make their decision on a college education, what are some of the factors you think are so important to them?
Well, that's a great question. And I'll start off by saying that I remind young people all the time, and they may get a little intimidated by this, but I remind them, hey, this is not a 4-year decision for you. This is a 40 or 50-year decision. Things that happen during your college years will stay with you forever and put you on a path to success. So it's really, really important to pick the right school for you. And so we know recent sociological studies will tell us that 3 things happen while you're in college, or really between the ages of 18 to 23 or so. These 3 things happen to young people. Number 1, you're going to develop lifelong relationships. People you go to college with will be your friends for life. You have a chance of meeting your spouse in college, developing a relationship with a coach who could be a mentor for you, or a professor that that you'll have a relationship with the rest of your life. Excuse me. When I went to Benedictine, this is exactly what happened here. Obviously, I met my spouse here. My best friends, one lives in St. Louis, one lives in Memphis. We talk every week on the phone. As I tell people, you can tell I'm old because I still use the phone to call people and talk to them, so which is a little unusual nowadays. But, and then I had a professor that I built a relationship with over time. We exchanged letters and phone calls until he just passed away last year. So you will develop lifelong relationships. That's the number 1 thing that will happen. Second thing that will happen to you is you'll make the faith your own. Young people will go through a time in their lives where they're asking the really important questions about what their relationship is with the faith, how to become more faithful. Sometimes they're asking themselves, maybe I should be less faithful. Okay, and so you want to be at a place that's going to support you in that journey, has a great theology department or philosophy department or some sort of a campus ministry department, but you don't want to be at a place that's going to push you away from the faith, because that's really horribly that's horrible for them for a long-term perspective. We know from a different research perspective, the Pew Research Foundation has said that 80% of the young people that go to college today have an active faith life, 80%. But by the time they graduate, that number is reduced to 20%. 80 to 20% within a 4-year period of time. That's bad for that generation, and it's bad for this country if we allow that to happen. So develop lifelong relationships, make the faith your own. The third thing that's going to happen is that you're going to discover your vocation. You're going to be at a time in your life where you're going to kind of figure out what you want to do with life. Now, there's no question that many people in the middle of their career will change careers. I was an attorney, now I'm a college president, but your college years will put you on that path to discovering what your vocation is. Do you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or engineer or a nurse or a teacher or a business person? So that's what happens. These three things are critically important for you. Develop lifelong relationships, make the faith your own, discover your vocation. And so when you know that in your mind and you go look at a college, look at the people who go there, look at the people who teach there. Are these the types of people you want to develop lifelong relationships? Are they going to be there to support you in your faith journey? Are they going to be there to help you discover what your vocation is so you can be on that right path? That's really critically important when you go look at colleges.
Yeah, I think that's a real key, because for the parents, it's important because they want to feel that their child finds the right fit, but also does it mold them the way you want to mold it? Because let's be honest, some of our educational systems have went to the point that they're trying to mold them to their faction. And it's really scary. And this allows them to mold themselves to who they want to be, but it allows, if there's 80% that's coming with a faith relationship, you want them to be able to maintain that. If anything, you want them to be able to grow that. And like you said, make it their own versus the other. One thing I think is so unique is we got to know Benedictine this last fall and this spring with our son going to school there. And one thing I noticed right away, Stephen, is there's a culture to the campus. There's a culture to the students. And even talking back to students that graduated in the 80s and 90s, it was there. You've really been on a growth trajectory the last 10 to 15 years, but it was even there before. I'm just curious because, I speak about culture and I love talking about positive culture. And to me, it fits in the workplace. It fits in educational systems. It also fits in our personal lives. How has that culture kind of been developed? And, it's kind of went to another level. How have you done that? Because I love digging into that with guests.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. Culture is the key, right? And so I'm going to kind of answer it in a couple ways. You mentioned that we've been really blessed. We've been extremely successful in the last 10 to 15 years. Our enrollment's doubled. We've built a lot of new buildings. We've received top 10 ranking in U.S. News and World Report. And so a lot of things are happening. People always ask, hey, what's the secret, right? Why all this success at Benedictine College and why now? And our answer is pretty simple. We made a conscious decision. We were going to be a mission-driven place, and that everything that we did, every decision we made was going to be consistent with that mission. By embracing the mission, that has created a culture on our campus, okay? Our mission is to educate our students within a community of faith and scholarship. So understanding the power of community, having a strong faith life on our campus, and great academics, community, faith, and scholarship is really key. And that has created a culture on our campus of hospitality. But that's what created the thing of being a faith-based institution. And finally, having committed ourselves to academic excellence. And so all that goes around. But what we do is we do this because not for us, we do this so we will instill community, faith, and scholarship in our young people's lives. So after they graduate, that they will also embrace community, faith, and scholarship. They'll understand the power of community and that its whole is stronger than its individual parts. They'll be great team members and team leaders. Secondly, that they'll have a strong and personal relationship with Jesus Christ, understanding that true happiness comes from doing God's will. And then finally, they'll be lifelong learners and they'll continue to push themselves forward, given this foundation and the liberal arts that they received at our place, that they will understand how to be competent in their field, and that's going to be really important. But so that's what we do for our students. But I was also going to share with you. So my one of my stories for your listeners who aren't, at colleges is that having a mission and living that mission is critically important. We have a monk that says, are you willing to go bankrupt for your beliefs? Are you willing to go bankrupt for your beliefs? And we kind of think that if your beliefs are true, and the answer to that question is yes, you'll never go bankrupt because your beliefs will carry on to success every time. And that's our experience. But the other thing that I was going to tell you a story because that's our mission, and that creates a culture on our campus among our students. But we also wanted to create a culture among our employees about what kind of an organization we were going to have, okay? And I think that was really important. That'll be important for your listeners too. When Dayton Moore was hired as the general manager of the Kansas City Royals back in 2006, that was the hardest job in sports. Sports Illustrated had an article about the most difficult job in sports, all of sports, was the general manager of the Kansas City Royals. Mm-hmm. And he took that job anyway. And he was interviewed in the paper, and he said something I thought that was really interesting. He said, I want to change the culture at the Kansas City Royals to a point where when people hear the words Kansas City Royals, they think class, professionalism, success, and excellence. Class, professionalism, excellence. And so I saw that article and I thought, that's it. This is what we want to do at our place too as an organization. So we wanted to, make the campus beautiful. When we build a new building, make it look like the rest of campus. We had some buildings that didn't even quite look like the rest of campus, so we reskinned them and added to them. And the materials that we send out, how we carry ourselves. We wanted, when people hear the words Benedictine College, we wanted them to think as an organization, they are an organization of class, professionalism, success, and excellence. And so I think you can have two different cultures. One, the culture on the campus among our students and our faculty and staff, but also this organizational culture. And I think they're not in opposition to each other, but they're both really important for us.
Well, I congratulate you and your team because I do see that, and you see that as you kind of interact with not only your student body, but also when you interact with your faculty and everyone in the organization. We've seen that. So I give you congratulations there. And the one thing I tell people, I tell the Chargers, is you're sitting here listening. You may think, well, this is all about education. I don't have a student, they've graduated, or they're a long ways off. This doesn't fit me. It does, because the lessons we're talking about, Stephen talked about a mission driven. What about you? Do you have your mission driven for your family, for yourself? I was fortunate. I attended a Franklin Covey event back in 2006. I wrote it before then, but in 2006, I finalized it and I wrote my mission statement. And I've been reading that mission statement every day since that time. And I miss certain days, but it drives me of who I want to be. And we even did a mission statement with our family because there was a mission statement that we wanted our children to know, to be love and serve and care for others. So you can create that mission within a family environment, a work environment. Now you may be saying you're a leader, but the problem is my organization doesn't want us to build that culture. Well, then build it within your teams. Let them find the magic that's there. And then maybe you'll get somebody higher up that says, what are you doing with that team? Because they're producing. Because what happens is culture drives performance. And when you drive performance in the workplace and business, it's about driving profits. You're able to do that. In the education system, what happens, you could become where you attract more people to your organization. You have top-notch talent, and then that allows you to bring in top-notch students, and it really allows it to grow there. So just love that culture side of it. I kind of want to jump into an area that I know you believe in too, is just about leadership, because I think from culture, talking about leadership, what are some of those things that you see as maybe leadership traits or characteristics that you think is so vital and really has carried you in your walk in life, but also what you want to see students be able to receive also?
Oh, well, that's a great question. When I talk to the students and we talk about leadership, we talk about three things. A leader must have character, competence, and a commitment to greatness. A leader has to have great character, and it's more even than being honest and having integrity. It's a higher level than that. Doing the right thing when people aren't listening. People won't know how much care how much you know until they know how much you care. Ultimately, people will never follow you if they do not trust you. If you do not have great character, they will not trust you. You will never be followed. We had on our campus a guy named Lou Holtz, former football coach. Okay, and when he was hired at the University of Notre Dame, the president of the college says, "Listen, coach, I can give you the title, okay, of leader, but I can't make you a leader. Titles come from above. Leadership comes from below. If you look around, no one's following you. You're not a leader. Well, if you can't instill trust in the people that you want to lead, they're not going to follow you. They will not follow if you don't have good character. Secondly, you have to be competent in your field. You have to be willing to put in the work. Success only comes before work in the dictionary, okay? And so you have to be able to put in the work to be competent in the field that you want to lead in. If people do not believe that you're willing to put in the time to understand what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to do, they won't follow you either, okay? Even if you're the best person in the entire world, you have to be competent in your field. And one thing I always remind people, especially Americans, because they're all gung-ho about this too, and they get it. The first few letters of the word competence spells out compete. The world is a competition. Coke versus Pepsi, McDonald's versus Burger King, everything, all politics, everything's a competition. So when you're growing up, when you're raising your children, raise them so they understand how to compete in the world, because they will never be competent in their field unless they know how to compete. Okay, so character, competence, and then this commitment to greatness. In other words, are you committed to greatness? Do you have this vision for greatness? Can you take someone to a higher level, a level they never expected, and make them part of something greater than themselves? If you can do that, people will follow you. You have to have character, you have to have competence, but if you want people to really follow you to the greatest, to the ends of the earth, and to do great things, you have to have this vision for greatness. You have to be committed to greatness, or people won't follow you.
Yeah, and leadership is the key. And I love what you set up there, is saying leadership is not a title. You have to earn it. And through that character, competence, and commitment to greatness, people have to see it. And really what it comes down to, and the greatest teacher of all was Jesus, is you have to be a servant leader. Absolutely. Because if you're only there to serve yourself, people find out real quick and they won't follow that very long. But if you're a servant leader, you're willing to serve them, then of course you make a big difference. So I love that.
Anybody that's dealing with young people, this is really important too. Okay, so in the late 1950s, early 1960s, for every 2 people that received a college degree, 1 person retired. So basically the workforce was being doubled every year by college graduates. Today, for every 1 person that receives a college degree, 2 people are retiring. So this young generation, this generation that's in high school and college right now, will be asked to take on leadership roles and responsibilities faster than any generation in the history of this country. If we want our country to thrive in the way that it can, and it does, and it will, we must prepare our young people for leadership roles, because it'll come a lot faster than it's ever come in the past.
Yeah, I wrote a book about millennials when that was real hot, because, workplaces were having a challenge with how they came into the marketplace. But what I found out, it goes way back to 1274, Peter the Hermit, he said, every generation trades off to the next generation. I can guarantee you, my father probably thought when I was a child, boy, that boy just doesn't get it. But, we kind of make our way, but we grow up with the environment that we're in at that time. And that's how you make those leaders. And you make a very good point, because organizations are going to need those people to step up to be leaders a lot quicker than before. So do they have those characteristics with them? Well, some great information.
I'm sure the greatest generation of the 1920s, I'm sure all those parents and grandparents thinking that generation's soft, right?
Yeah.
And they go out and beat fascism and win the war. So,
Yeah, it always changes off. Now, I have one more question for you. I thought from the student perspective, it'd be interesting to see if you think from the student side of it, what do you think for them that they really need to think about when they're trying to make that choice of education? What is so important to them? Because it's like you said, it's a lifelong decision, but sometimes students look at the short version. What would you tell a student that is trying to decide which college to go on? what they should consider about college?
Well, that's a great question, because I think many times, every kid is different and will have different ways of making this decision. But again, go back to, are there people that you want to hang out with, that you want to develop lifelong relationships? Are there faculty that care about you? And are there, can you find a mentor there? Is this a place that will help you in your faith journey? And finally, will this place help you figure out, discover your vocation? There's an interesting Gallup poll that came out a few years back, and it was really interesting. They had interviewed, I think, 30,000 people who had been out of college for 10 years or more. Okay, so these are people that had been, had a lot of experience in the workforce, and they determined how many of them were engaged in the workforce. Okay, and when they discovered how many were engaged in the workforce, it was a very small percentage. Gary, I think you might even know.
34% I saw in 2018 study.
28%, right. But those that were engaged in the workforce had three commonalities. Okay, number one, now remember, these are people that have been out of college for 10 years or more. Number one is that while they were in college, they had a professor that made them excited about learning. Number two, while in college, they had found a mentor, okay? And number three, while they were in college, they had done a research project that may have even taken more than one semester. Can you imagine those three factors were the only three commonalities of all those people that were engaged in the workforce some 10 years after they had graduated from college? That's the impact of your decision about where you will go to college, okay? And so that's really important. It's not a 4-year decision, it's 40 or 50-year decision.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is people really have to realize that you're not making a one-time decision. You're making a lifetime decision.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I have one question. I asked Adam, that's my son that goes to Benedictine. I asked him to send out to his buddies request. And of course, they can do that really quick through text message and the connection. And I said, give me a question for President Minnis that I can ask from the students that go to the college. And this is what they come up with, Stephen, is they said, how do you remember everyone's name?
Oh, I wish I was as good as they think I am. I care about them as much as I just love those kids as much as I can. And so I really try to get to know them as much as I can. It's really important. I talked to your son's position coach today, by the way. Your kid is a fantastic kid and really smart. So I don't know, your wife must have done a heck of a job raising him, right?
She did. She did. I will give her the credit. Well, thanks for sharing that. They thought that would be a fun one. But one thing, Stephen kind of said that off, but he is good at names, and I'm sure it's just very important to you. And like you said, if you care about them, it makes it easier. And think about that if you're a leader in your organization and they show you care that you don't. In my book, and I kind of talked about it before, I wrote a fable, Positive Culture Wins. One of the things that the HR person does is when they go around and introduce the new person in the company, they don't just say, this is Stephen Minnis. They let them know about their family. And just think, if you care enough about your people that you understand what's going on, you make a greater connection with those individuals. And I think that's the real key.
It's a matter of humility. I think I thought a kind of a cool story that I always heard is, Tom Brady had been at with the Patriots for how many years, and how many new players had come. Every new player that walked into that locker room, Tom Brady would walk up to him and say, "Hi, I'm Tom Brady." As if we didn't know, right? But that was his way of saying, hey, look, I'm just a regular guy here. I'm Tom Brady. I want to introduce myself, welcome you to, at that time, the New England Patriots. So I think that's a really good lesson for us, a lesson in humility and bringing people into the culture.
Yeah. Well, let's go into the recharge round. I'm curious to see what you believe in this. I ask every guest these same 6 questions. They're kind of my framework that I go out and speak about. But the first one is, share how you believe your mindset affects your daily living, Stephen.
Sure. Yeah. So I have this kind of weird description of my mindset, which is paranoid optimism. Okay. I heard one time somebody told me that if you're worried all the time, you lack faith. Well, okay, when I die, I'm going to have a lot of problems explaining this because I'm worried a lot, right? So, but I call it paranoid optimism. Andy Grove wrote a book, who one of the founders of Intel. He says only the paranoid survive, and I think it steals the will when you are constantly on edge, worried about that. So I'm nervous about various things, but I'm optimistic, and a strong faith life gives you that. So I'm paranoid optimism is what my mindset is.
Excellent. How about, what do you do daily to bring energy in your life?
Oh, well, guys, I think that's really important. I think you have to continue to keep yourself physically fit. That really helps. But I think having a love of your job really brings energy. It is so important to have that energy. And so sometimes you have to kind of give yourself pep talks, but you want to be an energy creator, not an energy sucker. Okay. When you go into a room, you want to have all this energy in the room. People want to be around you if you have that energy. If you're sucking energy out of the room or away from other people, oh my gosh, what a downer that can be. You just can't do that.
Yeah. Attract or detract you. And, that's really what personalities do and how people come about. I love that.
Yeah. Good.
Share the number one connection or relationship that's made the biggest impact on your life.
Well, the Benedictines or Benedictine College is probably the biggest connection I've had. Obviously, I went to college here. Now I'm the president, but met my wife here, met my best friends, strengthened my faith life. I mean, it's and put me on the path to where I am today. So that's probably my biggest connection. And now my kids went to school here. Now I'm here as the president. It's really it's an incredible blessing that I've been given.
Yeah, very strong connection. What advice has influenced you the most in your life?
Well, I'll tell you my favorite quote, which is from Arch-Abbot Boniface Wimmer. Arch-Abbot Boniface Wimmer once said, forward, always forward, everywhere forward. We must not be held back by debt or bad years or difficulties of the times, because man's adversity is God's opportunity. And so at the college, we do have this mantra called forward, always forward, and we're constantly pushing ourselves forward, always forward. We cannot be held back. We cannot be harmed or put in a bad spot because bad things are happening. We have to continue to push ourselves forward, always forward.
Yep, because you're either going forward or you're going backwards. I feel in life you're not in neutral. That's
you're growing or you're dying, right? That's what Lou Holtz always said.
Recommend a book and share why you love it. I know you read a lot of books, but share me one of your favorite ones.
Sure. One of my favorites of all time is probably Boys in the Boat. It's about the 19 gold medal winning rowing team, which actually was the rowing team from the University of Washington. And they won the national tournament in rowing and went over to Berlin. It's an awesome book. Probably the key to that book, some people don't even think it's a leadership book, but it's an incredible leadership book. Kind of the hero of the story was the best rower in the entire program. Every boat that he was in would win, but he was never put in the top boat and kept there. And so one time he goes to the coach and he says, tell me why I'm the best rower. Why aren't I in the number one boat all the time? And he says, because you row for yourself and you don't row for others. And once you start rowing for others instead of rowing for yourself, you'll go in the top boat. And a light bulb goes in. From then on, he says, I'm going to row for the guys in front of me and for the guys behind me. And once he started doing that, he was in the number one boat. They never lost a race, won the gold medal. It's an incredible story.
I'm going to have to check that one out. I have not read that book yet. You've almost made it through the recharge round, Stephen. My last question for you. Define in one sentence or less, what legacy do you want to leave the world?
Well, I'd love to be, one sentence or less. My lifetime goals have always been love my wife, raise good kids, get to heaven. If I can do those three things, I'm a successful person. So I number one's pretty easy. I do love my wife. Number two, I hope the kids turn out all right. They're old and out of the house now. Two of them are married. And then number three, who knows what's going to happen there, but I sure hope I get to heaven.
Well, I think you're on a good path towards it, but like we have to do, we know we have to try to do it each and every day, but I truly appreciate you taking the time. Why don't you share with them, Stephen, if you would, if they wanted to check out Benedictine College, where they could go to and the website. And I know there's some great information and pictures of the beautiful campus.
Sure. Well, thank you. Benedictine.edu, Benedictine, Benedictine.edu. That's our website. We're here in Atchison, Kansas, on the Kansas and Missouri border, looking over the Missouri River. We'd love to have you visit. Anytime you want to come and visit, let me know. Send me a note. I'd love to show you around the campus.
Yeah, and I know you're around 2,000 students now, and last year you had 48 states that actually attend Benedictine College. So it's not like it's just in the Midwest. There's students that come from all over the United States that attend Benedictine. Yeah, anything else you'd like to share with them?
What's that?
Anything else you'd like to share with them?
No, we'd love to have you visit Benedictine. Seeing our campus is really, really beautiful. But I think what you'll find when you walk on campus, you'll feel a real spirit to the place. And I think that's going to be really important. Ultimately, probably my message to the listeners are create a mission, live that mission. If you do that, great things will happen for you.
Well, Stephen, we can't thank you enough for being on the Charge podcast. I appreciate your time. Chargers, I hope you're charged up now, ready to go. Even if you don't have a student ready to get into education, guess what? You got a lifelong learning education today from President Minnis, and I just appreciate him sharing that knowledge and expertise with us. Chargers, the key I would tell you to do is, though, have you defined your mission? If you haven't, I would suggest try to write that out. It can be as simple as a couple words, or it can be a couple sentences, but define what you want your mission to be, because that becomes your guiding path, kind of like that compass that will guide your life for the rest of your life. And you can adjust it and change it over time. I've done that, but that gives you a calling to really follow. And I would really suggest that, as Stephen said, I think it's one of the greatest things that I've been able to do. It really allows you to move forward in life. So Chargers, thanks for joining us again today. And remember, come back next week and we'll have another great guest. Make it a great day.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.